Now we know our three rules. We can use our rules in order to look at an object and what its image should look like and be able to determine the characteristics of that image. So first we're going to we have a concave mirror, you can see it's concave, with an object beyond F, so further than the focal point, and C, so even further than the center of curvature. And that's what this blue arrow is representing. This blue arrow is your object. So if it was you looking in the mirror, that would be your face. If it was a candle sitting in front of the mirror, that would be the candle. So we're going to try to figure out what the image should look like. What are its characteristics based on our three rules? So we're going to draw our three lines. Now the trick to this is to remember your three rules. Make sure you're drawing the ones for the right type of mirror, in this case, a concave mirror. And we always start our arrow at the top of the object, because this blue arrow is the object, right? So we want to start our arrow there and then draw our first rule. We'll always go through the top of the object because that will find us the top of the image. So rule number one was that the beam goes straight in, and then it bounces down through the focal point. So that's rule number one. Straight in, down through the focal point. You might want to pause the video at any point so that you can draw these lines on. Feel free, pause the video, draw on your lines, and then listen to the rest of the video. That's perfectly reasonable. Rule number two. Rule number two, I'm going to start at the top of my object again. I'm going to go down through the focal point, and then remember, once it goes through the focal point, it's going to go straight out. There we go, straight out. I've done it in a different color. You don't have to. I've just done it in a different color so you can see the difference. Again, if you need to pause, stop so that you can draw on your second line. Rule number three was that the light would start at the top of the object, it'll go through the center of curvature and back along itself. There we go, and back along itself. Voila. Now, why do we draw three lines? A lot of people say to me, hey, if we drew two lines, they'd still cross. But two lines crossing could be a coincidence. Three lines crossing at the same place like these two, see how they all cross here? That's no coincidence. This was the top of my object where all the lines started. Where they cross again here after they bounce off the mirror, because this is all our reflected light bouncing off, that is the top of my image. Now I'm going to draw this in as an arrow as well. So this is the top of the image, and you'll notice the bottom starts on this dotted line. The bottom of my image is also going to start on the dotted line, and I'm going to go straight down, and there is my image. Now you'll notice a few things about this. This is still an arrow because this was an arrow, so I'm just going to draw it as an arrow. And its tip is where these three lines cross. Now I can describe it because I can use my SALT method, right? The size, I think about the size, my image, this arrow I just drew is a lot smaller than this one. So I'm going to say its size is smaller. Its attitude, remember its attitude is talking about which way is it flipped. This one is upright and this one is inverted, the fancy word for upside down. So it's inverted because it's facing the opposite direction. It's inverted. Then we're going to look at location. When I look at location, I'm comparing how does this new image compare to the mirror compared to the original? Well, it's a lot closer. So I'm going to say closer because it is closer. And finally, the type. Now, the type could be a little hard for you to imagine, but there's a hint. Every inverted image is also real. Every time, if it's inverted, it has to be real. If it's real, it must be inverted. This means if I placed a screen here, that's where it'd be in focus. When I move my screen back and forth, this is where my screen would sit. So there we go. We've done our first one.